Hey guys, it's Corey again. I am going to go through DKIM today. So DKIM is one of the email verification validation type records that you put in your DNS. And I have been having some trouble with mine, so I'm working on this particular issue right now. So this is just going to be an overview of what DKIM is, and I'm going over this page here at DMARCLY. So what I'm doing is setting up my air agency, and the email for that is the wiseagent.ai email, and I am having some issues trying to get the DKIM to work correctly. So what is DKIM? DKIM is domain keys identified mail, DKIM. And they're basically using information from the email that's being sent and using public key encryption to make sure that the header information and information about the email have not been altered during its transit from the sender to the receiver. So the way that that is done is on the sender side, you need two keys. On the sender side, you need the private key. You would encrypt information about the email in a header that is encrypted with the private key. Then that email is sent to the receiver, who would then, it would probably be shipped along. I assume the public key is shipped along to the receiver so that they can decrypt it and then check the email against the information that's in the header. So that's kind of it in a nutshell. So they have an analogy here. It says, I have found an analogy between a postal envelope seal and a DKIM signature that helps understand DKIM. So basically you put this seal on an envelope, and then you can tell if it's been tampered with, in transit. So it's sealing it. The DKIM is sealing it through a public key encryption technology, and they call it asymmetric cryptography. A pair of keys. So asymmetric cryptography uses a pair of keys, private keys, which are known only to the owner. So the owner keeps that. So whoever's sending it keeps that, and public keys which may be distributed widely. So the way that public and private keys work is if you lock something, so to speak, or encrypt it with the public key, it can only be unlocked with the private key. And a lot of them, I believe the symmetric ones work both directions, but this one is just set up so that you encrypt it with the public key and decrypt it with the private key. So then you also know that it was sent from the person who gave you the key, who gave you the private key. So so digital signatures is one of the best known uses of asymmetric cryptography, and the message is signed with the sender's private key and will be verified by anyone who has access to the sender's public key. Ensures the message hasn't been tampered with, the signature is bound to the message, and verification will fail for practically any other message, no matter how similar it is to the original message. So, on a high level, DKIM is two components, signing and verification, and the DKIM enabled signing server signs the message on its way out using a private key, which is part of the generated key pair. Then when the message is received, again, it checks to see if the DKIM signature field exists in the header, and if so, uses the DKIM public key in the DNS to validate the signature. So yeah, I guess it doesn't even have to send it with the email. It can go back to the DNS and validate it from that. And that's the record that I'm struggling with. Is it the way I'm having to configure the email? It has the public key in two pieces, and I'm having to concatenate those two pieces together, and it doesn't seem to be working properly. So anyhow, so that's just my issue. In short, yeah, you create a pair of keys with the public key and private key. You keep the private key on the signing server, and you publish the public key in the DNS DKIM record, so that the verification server has access to it. Here's a the explanation is, I thought this is a cool one to go over. Shows how DKIM works, how to explain DKIM to your grandmother. So that is domain key, um, domain key identified mail, DKIM. So growth of the internet has caused email systems to grow increasingly complex. Spam, phishing, forgery attacks plaguing users globally. DKIM was created to allow the internet service providers to verify a sender's identity, and to understand how this is possible, we need to first understand how email works. So walking through what email does, basically, if you're looking at an envelope, you've got the to address, and that is to get the envelope to the destination. You have the from address, which is where you would return this message to. This is all in the envelope. And the letter itself has the greeting and a signature, and then also content in the middle here, which they didn't really talk about that. So so this is the email identity crisis. The Internet Protocol describing email, SMTP, which is Simple Mail Transport Protocol, I believe. Oh, yeah, it's right there. Simple Mail Transport Protocol is very similar to snail mail. So, well, I don't think it's similar to it at all, but it has address information, it says personal writing style, a signature, and handwriting. So, yeah, snail mail, if you don't know, refers to letters carried by the post office. So you could spoof some of these pieces and modify this on the way on as mail is traveling through different servers. It goes through a whole bunch of hops to get to you. So putting a DKIM or an encrypted piece in the mail, and I'm sure I don't know for sure, but it would have to have information about the content of that, like a checksum or some other information about that is encrypted also in that, so that you can pretty much guarantee that it's going to be, just about any other version of the email would fail. So DKIM relies on cryptography, allowing senders to generate a pair of keys to sign. Public key kept secret. That's what you use to encrypt on the way out. Private key is public key is published everywhere. Private key is kept on the outgoing mail server. So you use the private key to encrypt and put a signature on it, and it has to have it's got key headers and some content, some sort of a content piece in there that it enabled to verify that the content that you receive hasn't been played with. And then once the message is delivered, you go back to the DNS and you get the public key. You get the public key and decrypt it. So matching signature means a successful validation. And their little idea here is, think of it this way: when you pay for something with a credit card, you check your signature on both the receipt and go back to the card to verify that the person who is doing this is the right person. So the signature that you receive, you've got to decrypt from the DNS information. So so DKIM and security. To hack DKIM, cyber criminals need to reconstruct the private key. So how can you prevent them from doing that? They could over time. As I understand it, I never took any real cryptography type courses in college, but I had lots of friends that did, and they were always trying to pick large numbers and build their encryption technologies around the proper seeds in order to keep it from being easily reverse engineered. So basically, use a bigger key is one. So the size of the number indicates or kind of dictates how much CPU you're going to have to use to try to decrypt that, to determine what the private key is. The other thing is that from the private key, theoretically, you cannot go from the public key and determine what the private key is. You can't reverse engineer that. But with enough time, I believe you can, in CPU power, you can figure out what the private key is. Plus, they'd have to care to do that. But to prevent this, what you do is you rotate your keys every 3 months. So what they do is just come up with a new set of key pairs, and you do that every 3 months. So unless they've got quite a bit of access to quite a bit of CPU and really do care, it's pretty unlikely that in 3 months they're going to be able to decrypt it. So then, yes, this is some more email security measures that you can take, which is DMARC, domain-based message authentication, reporting, and conformance. That is a standard for email authentication, and it uses both DKIM and the sender, the SPF. So the three pieces that I'm familiar with are DKIM, SPF, and DMARC that you need to set up in your DNS info. But that is, maybe I'll do a little discussion on that in another video.